Okay, so it should be recorded now, and I hope it's recording what it should. So the sequential files loading, it's very similar to what we already did last time about the processing, the database, table replications, SQLs, and stuff like that. I already opened one of Thomas's jobs where I will show you already something built, and then I will try to replicate it on something similar. The mainstay of the whole sequential load is definitely a stage, which is called sequential stage. Yeah, in sequential stage, you have two possibilities of loading the files. One is called file pattern, where you can load multiple files just with something what is called mask. You can use asterisk. So it's kind of similar what you do if you are doing some select all, or if you are doing some likes. It's a wildcard. And the other possibility is that you can use a standard file. So you can just switch to specific file. And in specific file, then you need to select the right file. There is a word of warning. Browsing to the right file on the GSA could take minutes, even tens of minutes. So what I really recommend, I will open it again, is to write the path somewhere else, or use the path from other jobs, because our main entry point to data lake is via the GSA POC, GSA projects, the data lake. So this will be always the same. And there is also folder hound. I think Thomas will be changing it to SWA later on. But this is your base. Then just build it by yourself. Believe me, it will save you a lot of time. You can always use some help, like when you start to search on the file via the browser, or via the file explorer. But don't use browse. Trust me. If I will do this, we will lose 20 minutes. So I will not even try that.
Okay.
Yeah, there is also a lot of properties. Thomas is very advanced in the sequential file load, so he has a lot of experience. So learn from him as much as you can. And there are options which we will put on default, but there are also the other possibilities. Which might come handy, especially when you are handling the rejects and rows which are not exactly according to your specification. Overall, loading CSV files or flat files is difficult from one simple reason, that people can provide you data which are not normalized, not checked. They can contain some special characters, different coding, and so on and so on. From that reason, the loading from sequential stage is kind of different, and sometimes it's about trial and error. So those are the properties. There is a format. There are, of course, again, columns. And what I would do is just build a simple job from existing file. So I just wanted to give you the fast introduction, because I think this will be your bread and water for some time, Tonio. So it's really good after this session if you go and learn from all those jobs which Thomas built, because they are really, really useful. And they are well built, so you will understand. Let me find the file first. just very fast. Where should I put that? It should be on C. Let me. Yeah, so I will take what I can take. I will take something from Hound, because why not? Something small. There is a file which is called export. Yeah, it looks okay. So I will first do what I have said before. I will already copy that path because I want to be clever. So then what I do, I will create a new job, a new parallel job. And from, yeah, in my case, it's in favorites. I strongly recommend to put it into your favorites, but it is also located in files. Yeah, in my case, it's not, because once you put something into favorites, it will be moved from the original set. I don't know why it is moved, but yeah, it's like that. And so we will need sequential file. We will need our Netezza connector, and we will need one link between those. Yeah, no big deal. Then we will open sequential. The default method is read-specific file. So I will put the file there, which is Hound, then export.csv. You will see that now it's updated. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then first line, let me open that, is column name. That's correct. So we set it on true. Keep file part. Yeah, the partitioning is only for large files, so we don't care right now. Then we have a missing file mode. There is depends, error, or OK. I usually put there error because if the file is missing, then I want the job to be aborted. Then there is something what is reject node. So if any rows have not been loaded, you from some reason, you can either select if you want to continue, fail, or you want to output them somewhere. Since we want to do very simple exercise here, we will just put the fail. So if one row fails, that we don't want to load the file anymore. Yeah, this could happen many times when some rows have some special characters, some rows have bad spacing, so they have additional delimiters, yeah, and so on and so on. Report progress, of course, we want to have always on. I don't see any reason why we should want it disabled. In options, you have also additional things available. Yeah, you can even create something what is called schema file. I will talk about it later on, but we will not try that. From the schema file, by the way, you can load the definition of columns. The disadvantage here is that the schema file must be located directly on server, and the schema folder must be defined. And in our case, because we don't have the complete control over Datastage, we are limited with that option. But I saw some examples, and it's working otherwise very nice. But we will not need this right now. So I will skip on format. So first is record level. The record level says if you have one row, then what is the final delimiter? In our case, it is usually end. Yeah, so we can just leave that end is 0A, 0D carriage return line feed. Yeah, and we will live with that, and we hope that the file is defined like this. Then delimiter. Let me check. Delimiter seems to be comma, so it will stay. And quotations, it seems again they are double. I don't see that there are any and there was. It's a very good example file. You have also options to single or even none, and I think it's even possible to create your own quoting if you have some special reason for that. Same comes for delimiter. You have some standards defined here, but you can also define additional. As I said before, you have also ability to add additional properties. Yeah, for special files from Unix or even from ZOS, where you need a very different behavior. But for example, here, I have changed the final delimiter to delimiter string, so you can have something on the end of the each record, because not always everything is line feed and carriage return. Sometimes it's a one long stream, and you need to decide, okay, there is a percentage, there is a dollar sign and ampersand, and this is the delimiter from the, because if you would display the file, it would be one long line. And we had a situation like that. So some things need to like final delimiter and final delimiter string, they have to be exchanged. They are kind of in pair or in the group, and you cannot have two of them.
Adam, you mentioned various default line end characters. Have you tested this? Have you experienced with the normal carriage return line feed that we have on Windows servers on Windows systems edited, and with the line feed that you usually have on Linux systems?
I had one of the files where I had to use the Unix ending. And it was a different thing. I don't know. I think I received that file from tools team, and so the standard end was not going to do that. Then when I go to hexedit, I saw that there was not a line feed. There was only the carriage return.
Oh, that's strange.
Yeah. But sometimes you get files like that.
Yeah.
And here in the final delimiter, or with the final delimiter string, you are able, to fix those or handle those special files.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what you can also do, you can set special definitions for formats, format strings, and so on and so on. But me and Thomas, we decided that best course of action, and I will switch to columns now, is to load everything as character, or as nvarchar, and then do the operations on the file, on the columns directly in the database. The reason is simple. People will once fill in the date, in one format, and the other it will be different. And especially when we have multiple files, which is in SWA very often, multiple parties of people will fill in the data different way. So if you define it correctly and specifically here, it's nice, but in the end you would need to change and modify, and in the end you would need to put transformer and so on. So I would rather stay with the database where it's not that prone to error. It's faster to solve it on database always. Okay, so for columns, there are only 4. So no problem to just take them. So what I will do, I will copy product code. You see, I don't even have to insert rows. It always opens a new row in status. Then, to be fast, I will put nvarchar. Again, length 255. This is what we like. And no label, I put usually unknown, because sometimes if you force that it is no or yes, the file load can also fail. And if you put unknown, you will kind of let the data stage to decide what is the best option. So you kind of use the automated logic. And then, yes, I don't have to modify all the parts as usual. I will just propagate the values from the first row. So SQL type, length, label, and we are done. So okay. we will check again. We have a file which we know it exists. It's export CSV. First line is column names. That's true. We want to, if the file is missing, to have an error. If some rows are rejected, we won't fail. We want to report progress. No other options are really needed there. Final delimiter is end. It's comma and quotations are double. No other options are really required. Then we have defined columns, to our file all as nvarchar. So-called national varchar, so it will accept also the special characters to a certain degree, and we are good to go. You can also uncheck the runtime column propagation, because in case of files, the runtime column propagation doesn't work, because there is no metadata logic which can supply this. The only exception would be that schema file, but I would not go directly to the topic of schema file, because the schema file has ability to, if you change the schema file and then you put runtime column propagation, it's able to load it from that. But it's something kind of advanced, and it's something what I would like to test sometime in the future.
Yeah, Adam, my experience is that reading from one table to another table, just copying tables from one database to the other, their runtime column propagation works pretty good. But with sequential files, we definitely need to specify the columns.
Yeah, exactly. Or that schema file, which is kind of out of our reach right now. I have studied some schema files, how they work. I kind of know how you can specify them, but then you must put them directly on the specific folder in the server, and we don't have access there. So I would rather go with the manual filling now, and we will see how we can expand it later on. Okay, so now we need to open the properties, the job properties, and add our favorite parameter set analytic, so we can fill in the necessary values to connect to Netezza. You can notice that we don't need to specify any credentials for sequential file. The reason is simple. Once you connect, your credentials, which are GSA as well, will be able to access the mounted drives. And those mounted drives access is handled directly in the GSA tools. It means that me, Thomas, or anybody else who is in the group for as admin can add anybody as writer. You need at least writer access, I think, to be able to handle that. Reader maybe is not working. Okay, so
one question here. So even when scheduling the jobs, it will always go with my GSA
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You can also see in the rector that there is always your name defined, but not with the parameters, of course. The parameters will be loaded from the job properties for the specific stages. But when you log in, then it runs. But I don't think that if you have access to Datastage designer, and you can schedule jobs in this in the director. You have access to full portfolio of all products, except Datastage admin, where nobody has access from us. Okay, let me set the parameters. Analytic DB. This is, I think, pretty standard now for you. An analytic password. Then we will load it to the temp folder, to the temp schema. We will call it export count. No big deal. Write mode is again insert. We don't want append, we want replace. Everything you can leave in this case to default. It's not a question of this exercise. So you can see we are satisfied with what we have, and we can click OK. So now, I should have saved that, right? I should have saved that, because otherwise I would have to do that again.
Okay. So Adam, can you explain just quickly the properties that I can use for that? Because I have trouble to understand how the properties work.
What do you mean now? The job properties.
The properties from the Netissa connector. I saw something like drop or I want to understand those if in case I need it, or they're not that ones, the low ones. For example, I saw some jobs that have if you can open. I saw some jobs that have some other properties, or some, for example, in the session have some information.
Okay. We can look at on that later. I will compile, run the job, and then we can return back to the details.
Okay.
Yes. So let me expand that, and let me compile and run. So we will see, because if there will be some eventual problems, it would be good to solve them now, so you will be better prepared. Sometimes I don't think that there will be problem with this file, but sometimes some loads can be really the pain, especially if the delimiters are not what they seem to, and Unicode stuff and so on. So I will select dynamic here again, and let's run it. And let's see what we have screwed.
Selecting dynamic means it takes the latest settings of the credentials that are required to run this job. The credentials that are used to connect to Netissa, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And so you can see it was fast. Some files are showing percentage, and some files will just show that's row by row. So in this case, you see that percentage, everything is okay. There is 0 rejected. We have 3,168 records imported. So it was quite fast. We see one warning here. I will open it just to be complete. And you can see relation does not exist, because you cannot drop what we are just creating. Also, the load from the GSA, to contrary, the GSA is not the fastest storage on the world. It's very fast. It's really fast. So even with the large files, you can do magic and load them in seconds. So just in case you want to play something with to play with some file in Excel, it's better to get some work, to put some work to that, load it to GSA, and then load it to Netezza and play it with that file on the database level. I can assure you that it will give you some efficiency. Only in case that you from some reason cannot load a large file and you need to work with Excel, then do that. But otherwise, I just use Netezza also as ad hoc staging area for different analysis on simple standalone files. And so basically, this is it. We can return to Tonio's questions if you don't have anything else about the progress. And you asked me that you want to explain some options in Netezza connector, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for example, in session, I don't think that you will set those things very often. Yeah, because the schema reconciliation basically says if there is some change in column definition, in the past, when you load the file or run the job again, then you have to decide what to do. Yeah. So, for example, if there is a column which is missing in the sequential in the loader in the sequential file source, then you can drop it, you can keep it empty, or you can fail. Yeah. So you will say if this column is missing, then you will just drop it and job will continue. Yeah. The same is if the data type is changed. If the data type is changed, then you can either keep it, drop it, or fail. Yeah. So also depends how exact replication of that file you want. If you know that the file will be changing, because you don't have direct control over that, then you can set those things on fail. So you will know when your job is aborted. There will be definitely some message from the system that the column doesn't exist anymore. In our environment, for example, it's not about the files but about tables. We just have a drop there, but we receive a warning. Yeah, and this warning will tell us that something has changed, and from that we can then take immediate action and fix the job to the latest definition. And the big advantage of that is that the administrators of the source don't have to tell us what has changed. The Datastage will do it for us. So basically, in our health check, if we have change, or if we have some warning, we go to the job and we check it out.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is basically about this is the other thing. You have unmatched table column action, and this is in case when the column is new and it's not in column definition. And this is exactly what I said. Then we get a mismatch report action, and the column, if the runtime column propagation is set on, it will be automatically added. But the job will send us a warning. Yeah, and this warning will give me a note. Okay, I should add it to the column definition then. But the good course of action is really not leave the report, the runtime column propagation to do all the job for you. Yeah, always use the runtime column propagation only as help. Yeah, to you. Yeah, only as help that something has changed. Then go back to the job and modify the job, add the column. Yeah, type it properly, and you will see it's much better.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is one of the things. The other is temporary work table mode. when something is loaded directly, yeah, then sorry, not directly. If it's not loaded directly, then it's working on a so-called temporary work table. And this temporary work table is something somewhere in a TISA, which is not normally available. It's in some staging phase. And first, the table, it's loaded to that table, and then it's loaded to production table. Yeah, so you can either select automatic because you don't care, it's somewhere, or you can select existing. So there is some table which is already existing for you, and this could be another check for you. For example, if you want your the target file or source file or source table to exactly match some definition, yeah, of some table, then you will specify the table, and if anything, even the data type will be unable to load into this table, then you will know that that something is missing or something is not correct. So yeah, there is also, if you want to truncate it before you will load the data. Yeah, so basically you need some, you need only one snapshot, and you can also the drop table before. Yeah, so the table will be then dropped. After the table then will be dropped. Yes, so it doesn't take up space.
Do you have any recommendation when to use when to modify this temporary work table setting?
Actually, I have done this only once, and this was when I wanted to have exact copy of that table, and if something has changed, I just basically forced the job to fail via this temporary table, because it tried to load something, and I didn't have to go through all the session definitions. Yeah, I just created the temporary table. I selected existing, put there, and if it failed to load into temporary table, the job immediately stopped. I didn't want extra columns. I didn't want columns missing. I didn't want other data types. I didn't want runtime column propagation. So if you load something and you want to have it exactly as before, then with the temporary work table, you can really, yeah, achieve that. But best practice is usually to leave it on automatic.
Oh, okay, but this the use of the temporary work table is triggered by the direct insert yes no, or?
Yeah, it should be.
Okay.
You see, you cannot select it anymore. Yeah, direct insert I used sometimes, for example, in SCSDR, because some databases, when they are slow, they tend to leave those temporary tables unattended. Yeah, and yeah, don't ask me exact details because I don't know them, but sometimes those tables just get stuck. So if you are receiving a certain error, which I can't remember right now, but I know SCSDR did that, then I put direct insert to yes. Yeah. Okay. I don't think that's direct insert yes no is kind of faster or slower. Yeah, I think it's kinda the same. Yeah, but with the direct insert, you are not taxing the database that much. But on the other hand, if the load fails, you don't have access to the temporary data. So this is where I see the advantage of that. And I think you can also do some special things with the temporary table, but to be honest, never use that. Yeah, so direct insert is useful when the temporary table makes you some troubles. Yeah, and from the error message, you usually find out that it is happening. It's quite clear.
Adam, your meeting is ending in 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Will the recording be stored when it terminates, or do you need to ensure that before it ends?
Yeah, I will rather have it. I will have it stored.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, there are also some load options. Generate statistics. I have never tried, but I can imagine that it could be something worth of research. Yeah, in the future. Right now, if we want some statistics, we are just loading them or getting them in emails. Yeah, and that's good enough. And you can also additional possibility that if you have too many rows rejected, yeah, then it will be just out. In my cases, most of the replications, if there is only one row which is wrong, then I leave the job, the whole job fail, because I want to have one-to-one. In most of the cases, I really want the complete mirror of data. Yeah. And there is also the before and after SQL, but I think that in this case, it kind of makes sense. You can put anything what is before and after that Netezza connector created some or run some SQL, like loading, inserting, updating. And it's before SQL, after SQL. I don't know the difference between the node and standard. So I have never used nodes, noded SQLs. Yeah, but I think the biggest advantage of before and after SQL is either that you can execute stored procedures, yeah, which are very powerful if you build them in Netezza, and you can also run simple updates. Yeah, so for example, if you want to update the latest date somewhere when the table was updated, and so on and so on. But basically, you can put there directly some execute procedure. You can put there select statement, and you can even read the statement from the file. I think, Thomas, you have done that, right?